August 1st is always a celebration of Swiss National Day here at Old Stonewell Farm as I embrace my Swiss heritage, and my father blows his Alp horn trying to get the cows in. But luckily these Vermont cows, they ignore the Alp horn and they stayed put in the back pasture. But yes, an Alp horn was an instrument that was used to bring the cows back home. And my father did buy his own Alp horn and brought it back to New Jersey many years ago after a visit to his family in Switzerland. And yes, it did fly on the plane. It came apart in 3 different pieces to fit. But the Alp horn would be used to bring the cows back home. And I don't know if my neighbor would allow me to dress up his cows, but when the cows come back down from the mountains in September, it's a great celebration and they get decorated with lots of flowers on their head. For now, for me at Old Stonewell Farm, I have to be content with my American cows and my chickens that are having fun. And I just realized that my Swiss ancestry gave me a love for the outdoors and for cows and chickens, and even for my desire to be somewhere in the woods, to be nestled on the side of a mountain. This is a mountain in Appenzell in which there are several caves, and there's even a church that was in a cave many, many years ago. A great place to visit. But today for Swiss National Day, I share with you some lessons that I have embraced, and most of all, a lesson from my Großvater, my grandfather. So come, join me at Old Stonewell Farm for a Swiss National Day celebration. Well, August 1st is the celebration of Swiss National Day, and of course here at Old Stonewell Farm, I try to observe in some way that brings back memories of my childhood, that honors my heritage. It's really important to honor our heritage, to remember who we are, where we come from, to remember the stories once again that we might have heard when we were younger from our parents or grandparents. It really does inform our identity. It informs, what makes us the special creations that we are. As it is Swiss National Day, and I'm thinking a lot about heritage, my mind is wandering back again to, I should have gotten some Swiss chickens. Yes, there is such a thing as a Swiss chicken. In fact, there's a chicken that hails from the mountain village Appenzell, where my father comes from. And I said to him when I found this out, I said, Dad, did you know that there's an Appenzeller chicken? And it's called a Spitzhauben, an Appenzeller Spitzhauben. And so this Swiss chicken, the Appenzeller Spitzhauben, is called so because this is the Spitzhauben is the fancy headdress that the Appenzeller women wear. So this chicken has a crown that looks like a fancy headdress. Somebody also said, when I was researching the heritage chickens, somebody said that the chicken is called an Appenzeller Spitzhauben not only for the ornate crown on its head, but reminiscent of the stern look that the Swiss women have. I don't know how true that is, but so I was really, a part of me wants to get some Appenzeller chickens for the farm. They were, they are meant to be really good in cold weather, but they love mountains. And I also read, now what stopped me from getting them, I also read is that they love to fly up into trees. And in fact, if it's snowing out and it's nighttime, chances are you won't be able to get them back into their coop because they would be high up sleeping in a tree and they would be very happy. But this chicken is a heritage breed that was found in the Swiss Alps around the 1500s, 1600s. In fact, a lot of monasteries would raise the chickens because they were really great producers of large white eggs, and they would produce no matter what the season, no matter what the weather. So I don't know, I was thinking about getting a Swiss heritage chicken for Old Stonewell Farm, but I'm not quite sure if I can if I can handle having chickens run up to the trees. And I don't know how they would get along with my other chickens. Our heritage is really important, where we come from, and to honor it. And I've learned a lot of lessons from my ancestors, from my dad, from his parents. Even though I didn't know them very well, I've heard the stories, and I've learned lessons that continue to make me laugh, inform me, guide me. I know that I learned a lot of lessons from my Swiss ancestors, even though I really didn't get to know them very well, having been living in Switzerland, and we live here in the United States, and I don't really speak the language. But from the stories that my father has told me, and the stories that I've heard growing up, they do hold a special place in my heart. I learned from my grandmother that if you are going to garden, you garden really early in the morning before it gets really hot. And that's a mistake that I was making all these years. Oh, I don't want to get to my garden, it's too hot out there. And then I remembered my grandmother's wisdom, my grandmother from Switzerland, her wisdom, that you garden first thing in the morning. And I remember that just recently on a trip to the Amish country in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Now the Amish, they are Swiss descendants, and so maybe that's why I love the Amish country so much. It connects me to that Swiss part of the family. But as we were coming back to Vermont on our last day, really early in the morning, and I just remarked to my husband, look at everyone gardening. All the Amish girls are out in the garden at like 6:30 in the morning, 7:30. And it makes sense. That's when it's cool. So my grandmother always did that. And I also learned that whenever you are picking strawberries or raspberries out in nature, to make sure before you pop them in your mouth, to make sure you check and be sure that there aren't any bees on them. My grandmother had a habit. She had the most beautiful strawberry field in her garden in Switzerland. And I remember the story how she took a big strawberry and popped it in her mouth, but there was a big bee in it and her whole mouth swelled up. So another lesson learned, check your berries before you pop them in your mouth. But today, one of the lessons I share is what I call Großvater's wisdom. Großvater meaning grandfather in German. So grandfather's wisdom. And that wisdom I was reminded of the other day when I went for a walk, and I found this stick. And what does it look like to you? To me, it looked like a snake. And it just made me smile because it brought to mind a memory of my grandfather, how he used to make these amazing wood carvings out of just sticks. He'd go out into the woods and he would just find anything, and anybody else would just pass it up and say, oh, that's just a stick. My husband, in fact, almost burned this. I'm like, no, I need this. I want to share it with everybody at Old Stonewell Farm. But a lot of people would just pass up the branches and sticks that my grandfather would then take home to his workshop in the farmhouse in Appenzell, because he saw beyond. He saw a stick wasn't just a stick. He saw a snake in it, or an animal, or he saw something. He would bring the wood to life, and he would transform these branches and these sticks into animals, into people in the house, in the farmhouse. You opened up the door and it was already heavy with wood. There was wood paneling, on the walls and the ceiling and everything. But in addition to all that wood was all of my grandfather's wood carvings. I had several wood carvings that he was going to give to me and my brother and my sister. And there was a monkey that had a really bad underbite. That was a funny little wood carving. And then there was a lizard. And then there was the most incredible camel, and there was a man on top of the camel. But I loved that one because the man had hair made from the skin of a rabbit. It had rabbit hair. And I remember my grandfather, the day before we left, he gave each one of us one of his wood carvings, and I got the camel. And I regret that I don't have it anymore. In my younger years, in my desire to have a house that was totally colonial American and 1700s, I saw that that wood carving didn't have any place in this house. And I think I got rid of it. And I really, now that I get older, I really wish I had it. But I have the memory, and I have grandfather's wisdom. And so my grandfather's wisdom that I share with you on this day is that sometimes we need to remember to look beyond what we see. Sometimes a stick is more than a stick. Sometimes there's beauty in ugliness. Sometimes there is hope in despair. Sometimes we are so quick to discard and walk away from things that we don't think are worthy or are meaningful. And then I thought about it some more, my grandfather's wisdom. If there are people like him out there that can see something beautiful, something alive, something creative in just a stick, imagine what God sees of us, how God looks upon us and sees more, sees that we are more than what we see in ourselves. So my grandfather's wisdom is that sometimes a stick is more than a stick, and that we too need to see beyond what is right in front of us. Sometimes we just need to realize that there is so much more in this life if only we could see the beauty. So take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, not what do you see? Take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, what does God see? What is the beauty? What is the potential? What is the gift that you bring into this world? Take a look and know that God's eyes are upon you, seeing more in you than you will ever be able to see. That you enjoy Swiss National Day with me. They got their freedom in 1291 from the Habsburgs. So have some cheese, have some good country bread, maybe some apple strudel, have some chocolate, do something to celebrate with me. But most of all, think about your heritage. Think about who you are, your identity. Laugh at the old stories that you heard growing up. Embrace the traditions. Think about loved ones who have perhaps passed on that always brought you a smile. Think about those in your lives who passed on faith to you or words of wisdom. But most of all, take this time, this day, and to remember always that there is so much more in you, so much more that you can ever see. Let who you are add beauty to this world. Until next week, thank you once again for coming to Old Stonewell Farm, and I cannot believe how fast this summer is going. I can't believe we're heading into August already. Time is flying by, so make sure you take time to enjoy the moment. And I will see you next week at Old Stonewell Farm. And if you enjoyed this time together, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, share with friends. This is a growing channel. I just hope that it blesses you, because I know you joining me blesses me. So until next week, God bless.
Dear